Okay. So, welcome everyone to Tanya, and we are going to start with Hayom Yom just as a way of warming up our spiritual calisthenics. Is that how you say calisthenics? Our warm up. So, the Hayom Yom for tonight and tomorrow I thought was pretty interesting, and also interesting in view of all of the mind-body studies and teachings that are so around us and present right now. So for the 15th of Tammuz, which is going to be tonight after dark, and tomorrow, it says, my father writes in one of his Maimorim, and I'm wondering if that's Levi Yitzchak, because these are the words of the Rebbe. My father writes in one of his Maimorim, fatness of the body can result from the spiritual pleasure and delight derived from godliness. They say of Reb Nachum of Chernobyl that he became corpulent from answering Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. So this is a famous quote about Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, and it's actually saying that he got fat from answering the davening and answering Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. And it's written here, fatness of the body can result from the spiritual pleasure and delight derived from godliness. So if you're interested in alternative health, or if you're interested in mind-body connection, then you're going to start to recognize that there are more and more teachings showing that the way we think about things is not just thought constructs. Our thoughts are actually so powerful, and they can so powerfully influence how we age. I think I quoted for you the Lynn McTaggart in one of my classes recently, that your attitude to aging and how you think about aging is actually going to affect how you age. And here we're reading that Reb Nachum of Chernobyl had such pleasure and such hanoah, such delight from connecting to Hashem, that it actually nourished his physical body to the extent that he was fat from it. So you could say it's an exaggeration, or you could say that we totally underestimate the mind-body connection, and that if we're living our life with joy and pleasure in Hashem's presence, not just the Hey Shmei Rabbah of the davening and shul, but taking pleasure and joy just from being in Hashem's world, and that's going to not lead to a person being, looking very emaciated and very gaunt. That's the person can be nourished and almost sustained from a ruchnius pleasure. So I thought that was interesting. And more we're seeing the power of the mind to influence and impact our physicality. So I thought this was an amazing.
Is she still alive? She was the person who wrote
Lynn
that book.
McTaggart? Yeah, she's writing and talking right now. She's very much
Really?
alive. She's alive in the world and putting out information, and it's really cutting edge because it's giving scientific testimony to a lot of things that we've told spiritually, that we think, it's a spiritual idea. And she's saying, no, it's actual science. A lot of the things that we've heard to be spiritual ideas that are actually scientific reality. So just one more. The Baal Shem Tov's Avos Yisrael, love of a fellow Jew, was beyond imagination. The Maggid of Mezrich said, if only we could kiss a Sefer Torah with the same love that my master kissed the children when he took them to Cheder as a teacher's assistant. So we've spoken many times about Avos Yisrael. Okay, so now we are going to come into chapter 18 of Tanya. So we are making steady progress. And what we're going to talk about tonight is that we're going to talk about a tool that we've been saying that we're talking about tools of the Beinoni. And one of the tools that we've been focusing on was the tool of meditation. That if the goal is to come into a love and a fear of Hashem, that's the goal, then we were saying that the Beinoni can do it in a couple of ways. One of the ways is he can meditate. He can meditate. He can choose. Remember that Tanya said if he has a brain in his head, he can choose what to think about. And then we spoke about the fact that the meditation of the Beinoni can lead to him having the right kind of feelings, because he meditates and then that arouses the right kind of feelings. And then we said, and if he tries to meditate and he cannot arouse his feelings, let's say he's meditating and he's thinking of all the greatness of Hashem, and somehow he can't actually have those thoughts and ideas impact on his actual feelings, because he's trying so hard to meditate and think the right thoughts, Hashem is going to reward him as if he's aroused those feelings, and almost going to bless him with a certain amount of those feelings just because he's trying so hard. Kind of, that was sort of what the Tanya was saying. And then the Tanya also indicated that there's another tool that the Beinoni can sort of rely on, and we're going to talk about that more now. And that is that actually there's a love of Hashem that we have as an inheritance from our forefathers that is buried deep within us. And in this week's parsha, chapter, we're going to start talking about this more. And in fact, it's going to become the theme for 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, for the next 8 chapters of Tanya.
How many chapters are there in Tanya?
There are 52.
Wow.
Actually 53, I think. 53.
Wow.
So now we're going to talk about this, and we mentioned it before briefly, that there is innate in every Jew a love of Hashem that's bequeathed to us by our avos, by our forefathers. And when we say it's bequeathed to us, we can talk about it like a nachla'ah, like an inheritance, that we get it because they so elevated and they served Hashem with such singularity of purpose, with such focus, with such dedication. They were so 100% filled with their, in Abraham's case, love of Hashem, in Yitzchak's case, awe of Hashem, in Yaakov's case, the ability to integrate and find, this harmonious Tiferet aspect. But the Avot was so, saturated with these feelings that because we connected to them and we have spiritually their spiritual DNA, we have a certain latent love of Hashem that is within us. And even if we're not in touch with it all the time, when push comes to shove, it's going to be there. And we've talked about the push comes to shove type of moment, and we've even given an example, and the example of recent memory is October 7th, and the plight of the hostages, for example, who showed tremendous Mesirat Nefesh not to give up on their Jewish identity, even at great danger or discomfort to themselves. And I've been learning long before October 7th from the Chabad sources of this Pintel Yid and all the Mesirat Nefesh of the Yidden in many situations throughout history, where when they were under pressure and duress, they would not think, chas v'shalom, of being surrendered sundered from their connection to Hashem, because there is this innate love that comes from the forefathers. So what this chapter is about is, okay, we told you, and we were speaking for a long time, let's say from chapter 9 to 17, about the struggling of the soul and the two different opposing armies, and all the ways the Benoni could sort of engage his mind to win the battle, put his head in the right place, use his concept, use his constructs, use his brain, use his understanding. But now we're talking about something that you don't have to try so hard. Actually, there's something really innate that is your Yerushah, and it's there, and you can kind of fall back on it. And this idea of you don't have to try so hard is coming back also from the pasuk that says, Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od b'picha u'levavcha la'aseto, that this thing is not just close to you to do it, this thing of loving Hashem and serving him. It's not just close to you to do it in your mouth through speech, or b'picha u'levavcha, or in your heart to feel the right things. It actually says, Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od. It's me'od, it's very close to you. Well, I'm trying, I'm meditating, I'm thinking, I'm using my head, and I'm still not really getting it. Okay, let's realize that maybe we can stop trying and just tune in to a residue, a reservoir of an innate love for Hashem that is there within all of us as a part of the Yerushah, part of the inheritance from our fathers. So that's really what
Beautiful.
we're going to be talking about. So now, having said that, we'll go inside and we will look at it.
That explains why Lubavitchers have this elevated connection and love for Hashem and people. I've always noticed that. How did they get there? Now I understand a little more how they get there.
Right. Well, the thing is that as you and I both, we didn't learn initially in Chabad, right? We both come from the Neve path.
Mm-hmm.
So I love, Litvish Yidden, and I love Yidden who love Torah, and I was very excited about the crowd in Neve. It was beautiful, the rabbis and the teachers and everything. But there's something about Chabad with the acceptance of everybody, A. B, there's a relaxedness to the way the relationship to mitzvot that comes from this idea that you don't have to try so hard. It's actually your true identity to serve Hashem. It's your true identity. It's what your soul really wants to do. Look at a flame. It's kind of always, trying to reach upwards. And it's really about removing the obstacles and giving the opportunity, and the flame will rise and shine. And I found that very compelling, that trust in the power of the Jewish soul, even, no matter how educated or uneducated, a Jewish neshama, a pinta yid, there's no distinction. It's the same as my soul, your soul. We all have the same rooting. And also the trusting that, to do mivsoyim and to go on the street and say, are you Jewish? Do you want to put on tefillin? The Rebbe said that every Jew really wants Torah. Like it's not, you don't have to coerce him. You don't have to twist his arm. You just have to offer it to him, that it is latent in his being, that if you are inviting and you're not sort of seeming like you're a weird person who wants to kidnap him, do weird things. If you just come with an opportunity and an open heart, that every Yid really wants emes, that kind of security and that kind of trust is what to me was amazing. So, okay. So let's go inside. So it says, Ula tofeset be'ur ba'ar ba'er hetov milat ma'od. So how are we going to explain this thing of ki karov elecha hadava me'od? Ki karov elecha hadava me'od. Let's talk about this me'od, like I told you about. So one should recognize with certainty that even the person who has only a limited understanding of Hashem's greatness, so that he lacks the materials necessary for meditation, and he doesn't have the heart to comprehend the greatness of the blessed infinite God, his mind and heart are not suited to meditation. And when they say meditation, they don't mean sitting and sort of being quiet. They mean meditation on ideas, on how great God is, on thinking about his deeds, on focusing with the brain. So he's lacking the tools of meditation, because usually we've been saying that through meditation, a fear and a love, even in his mind and understanding alone, how much more so is he unable to produce a vibrant, fervent love and fear? But we're still saying that this is ki karov elecha, hadavar me'od. So what does all this mean? That he can really practice all the mitzvot and stay away from not doing the things he's not supposed to do, and to be able to access all the mitzvahs of the Torah and to be able to study Torah. How can he do this? So he says he can do this because from the depth of his heart, in absolute sincerity, with love and fear. So just let's, he can arouse from the depths of his heart with absolute sincerity, with love and fear. He can get to this place. How? Because this is a hidden love. It's a present in the heart of all Jews, which is an inheritance to us from our patriarchs. But we must first preface a clear and precise explanation of the origin of this love. And now the Tanya goes into an interesting thing, because we don't all, first of all, our souls come from different levels, and we have different kind of souls. And some souls are from the world of Asiya, some souls are from the world of Yetzirah, some souls are from the world of Bria. Some souls just come into the world that in their previous Gilgulim, they've been elevated to different levels. And then there's some souls that are more nephesh kind of souls, and some souls that are more neshama kind of souls, some souls that are more ruach tika souls. So this is basically saying that they're all different kind of souls that have different roots of their origin. Different souls having different roots in different kind of different kinds of starting at different places. So we must first preface a clear and precise explanation of the origin of this love of Hashem, which level of the soul it stems from and its character, what sort of striving the soul constitutes. So let's go into this a little bit more. There is a love of Hashem which seeks a unity with Hashem while still remaining a separate entity, which is a soul clothed in a body. And there's another kind of love which is a yearning for self-extinction, which just wants to give itself over completely. So what drive is contained in this love, which is our inheritance? Also, how did this love become our inheritance? How does one inherit a love? And what about the fear? When we talk about love of Hashem, avas Hashem, what about yirat Hashem? What about that? And to not do what we're not supposed to do requires fear of Hashem. It's not only love, 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 love. Therefore, the statement that the hidden love in every Jew will lead him to observe all the commandments implies that this love also contains an element of awe. So now it's going to explain this idea when we talk about the avot as being a merkava for Hashem. What does it mean that the avot were a merkava? So the same thing that when a person gets in a car or a wagon or a chariot, the person who's driving the wagon or the chariot or the chariot or the car doesn't have any will. They're just following the directives of the driver. So too, the Avot were completely subservient to Hashem, the driver, and had no other will but to do the divine will, just like a chariot has no will of its own, but it's directed solely by the will of the rider. And because I said earlier when I was giving the preview, I said they were so saturated with their feelings of dedication and commitment to Hashem that they were able to bequeath to us the spiritual DNA. So the Tanya is using the language of a Merkava, that they were chariots, they were vehicles that just followed the directives of Hashem as if they had no separate will of their own. Therefore, they merited the privilege of drawing down for all subsequent generations of their descendants forever a nefesh, ruach, and neshama from the 10 holy sfirot of the 4 worlds of Atzilot, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So this sounds a little complicated, but we'll try to deconstruct it. In which of the 4 worlds and from which sphera within these worlds does the soul originate? Each individual according to his level and according to his needs. So we already know now, and we know this for a long time. I'm going to open a window, and if that doesn't help, I'll have to turn on the air conditioning lower. But anyway, so we already know that when we think about Kedusha and the Jewish construct of Tzimtzum and how Hashem creates the world and how there's a progression from Hashem at the top of this whole construct. Hashem is all light. Hashem is everything. Hashem is total revelation. Hashem encompasses everything. But then he wants to create a world. So in an elevator kind of a way from the world of Atzilus, where everything is just godliness, then he comes down to the world of Bria. There's a little more concealment of him and his light. Then within the world of Bria, we go down to the world of Yetzirah, even more concealment of his light. And in those worlds, they're kind of spiritual beings, but they're not in a body. And then the angels and seraphim and all other kinds of things. And then finally, on the lowest level is the world of action, the world of Asiya, which is where God's light is the most concealed. So that's the 4 levels and the 4 worlds. Within that, there are 10 sfirot on each world. In each world that goes from Keter, Chochmah Bina Da'at, Netzach Hod Yesod, and then Malchus. And in each level of these 4 levels, we have 10 sfirot, and they all levels of souls coming from each of these 4 worlds with 10 levels. So we have 4 worlds and 10 sfirot. So that's 40 possibilities of where the soul could come from. And then we have, and then each person's neshama is constructed of a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. We all have that. So where does our soul come from? From which level does it come from? So it says each individual according to his level and according to his deeds. It's actually interesting because a person can advance. So maybe his soul originated coming from the 2nd level and from chesed of the 2nd level, or it came from the 3rd level and it came from gevura or something. But a person actually, through his life and through his avoda on himself, he can actually receive, which is an amazing thing. It's written right here, that in a way he can trade in his old soul and get an upgrade, like a computer program or a phone. You can upgrade your phone's operational system. So I'm going to read it inside because what I've just said sounds crazy, but I'm going to read it inside. So his level refers to the level of the root of his soul, and his deeds refers to one's efforts towards refining himself. As the Zohar says, when one betters himself, he is given a higher order of soul. So you come into your life and you got a soul. Let's say Atzilus is level 1, Bria level 2, Yetzirah level 3, Atzilut level 4. So you got a soul from level 2, from, like I said, chesed of level 2, and now you worked on yourself and you can, elevate your soul. Kind of a wild idea. At any rate, even the unworthiest and most sinful Jew draws down by their marital union a nefesh from the level of nefesh of malchus of Asiyah. That's and so even if you're the lowest of the low, while you are creating a child, a soul is going to come down, and a nefesh from the level of nefesh of malchus of Asiyah, that's kind of like the lowest level, malchus of Asiyah, but still it's coming from this level of this construct of revelation that's sourced in God above. So I'm going to read the footnote, the explanation. This means to say that the union of every Jewish couple, no matter how low their spiritual level, brings forth a soul from, at the very least, the lowest level of holiness. This lowest level of nefesh de malchus de Asiyah, for Asiyah is the lowest, level 4 of the 4 worlds, and malchus is the lowest sphera in that world. Malchus itself is further composed of 3 levels, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, nefesh being the lowest of the 3. In addition, we have seen in the previous chapters, the soul itself consists of 3 levels of nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Thus, one who's been given only a nefesh, which stems from nefesh of malchus of Asiyah, has the lowest order of a soul, deriving from the lowest level in the spiritual hierarchy, and still, he has access to this inherent love and connection of Hashem that is part of the bequeathing of our avot, of our forefathers, something intrinsic to the DNA of every single Jew, no matter how low his parents were, no matter, he's born from Jewish parents. This is his nachla'ah, his inheritance. And since Malchus is one of the 10 holy sphirot, so we're talking about the lowest sphera on the lowest level of the 4 worlds, still, Malchus is one of the 10 holy sphirot. And since holiness is the realm of unity, where every level is comprised of all the other levels, I'm going to explain that in a second, the lowest level in Asiyah, is compounded of all the other levels in Asiyah, including Chochmah de Asiyah, wisdom of the world of action, the highest sphere in Asiyah. So what this means is, because we're talking about holy things, we have 10 sphirot, but each sphere really encompasses all 10. So I know this sounds very complex, but I'll just tell you a story. I'll stop the share for a minute and I'll tell you a story, and then we'll get back into the text. There's a story of the 10 kings of Esav, descendants of Esav. And for some reason, the 10 kings all fought wars and they all got annihilated. And then Esav's brother was Yaakov, and the Torah goes into talking about the 10. Well, Yaakov, we know he had 12 sons, and so why was this difference between Esav, the kings of the dynasty of Esav, and why did they all kind of get extinguished and not the descendants of Yaakov? And there's a beautiful comparison of the descendants of Esav to the 10 sfirot in the world of Klippa and the 10 sfirot in the world of Kedusha. And also, we know that before, this is very complicated stuff, but it is a Tanya Ch, so we're going to go for it. That also there's the idea that Hashem created the world, and there was kalim, there were vessels of Kedusha, of holiness, and somehow the vessels couldn't contain their holiness, and they shattered. And that's how we have these nitzitzut in the world, because there was hard to say that Hashem tried to create the world and it didn't work out, and then he had to try again. But that is a Kabbalistic idea, that Hashem created the world with 10 sfirot, but the sfirot were different to the second time he created the world, where the sfirot stayed intact. What happened the first time? That there was what we call shviras hakelim, that the kalim couldn't hold their light and they burst. And so now we have little sparks of light scattered through the world, and our job is to go through the world finding those scattered, broken shards of light and returning them to their source. What's going on here? So there is an understanding that in the first attempt of creating the world built on this idea of 10 sfirot, each sphera, when I talk about the sfirot, I'm talking about the emblem on my Tiferet movement bottle, right? The Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, all of that. That the first time each sphera couldn't share any of its light with any other sphera. So Chesed was just Chesed, and it didn't share its Chesed with Gevurah. And Gevurah was just Gevurah, and it didn't integrate with Chesed, and they couldn't mix properly to create Tiferet. And Netzach was just Netzach, and thank you for the illustration. And Hod was just Hod, and they just didn't share energies. And because they didn't share energies and there was no flow from one sphere to another, they shattered. Now, we have a different way the Sfirot are in our reality. In our reality, even though Susan just held up a very nice diagram of the Sfirot with each sphere in its place, actually it's more of a hologram. Each sphere, Chesed, it contains a little bit of all the other 9. And Gevurah contains a little bit of all the other 9. And each of them, although one is dominant, they kind of have bits and parts of all of them. So that it's a holistic entity. It's not just one sphere to itself. Is that sort of clear a little bit? Okay. So coming back into the share, when the Tanya tells us that even a person on the lowest level, who's just, who's Malchus of Asiya, which would put him at the bottom, because Malchus is the last on the tree of life, all the Sfirot, and Asiya is the lowest world. Even though he would be last on that sort of hierarchy, actually, he has Chochmah as well in his part of his structure, because everything includes everything else. So I'm going to read it again. Okay, in the lowest level of Asiya, it's compounded of all the other levels in Asiya, including Chochmah of Asiya. So no level, even if you've come down the whole tree of life and you on the bottom, Malchus, you still got Chochmah part of it, because everyone includes the other. Within Chochmah de Asiya is clothed Chochmah de Malchus de Atzilot. And even in that lowest level, you're going to be connected to Chochmah of Asiya, which is connected to Chochmah of Atzilos. In other words, even if you're on the lowest level of the whole hierarchy, you still got a little part of the highest level of the whole hierarchy. That's what it's saying. And it gets a little complicated, but that's exactly what it's saying. So, as the author explains in chapter 52, the sphere of Malchus de Atzilos closes itself in and illuminates the world of Asiya. But Malchus of Atzilot contains all the Sfirot of Atzilot. So each one is contained in the other, and so forth and so forth. So now you got it. So in Chochma de Malchus de Atzilot, it's closed Chochma de Atzilus. In the lowest level, you've got a little bit of the highest. Okay. And what's the highest? The highest has something to do with this quality of Chochma. Chochma. What is Chochma? And Chochma is such a beautiful midah. So I just want to see how far we've got. We got to go. We got to go quite far, but still I can talk to you about Chochma. Now I hope I find my place. Yeah. Okay. What is Chochma? So Chochma breaks down to the words koach ma. Chochma, which we think of as wisdom or wisdom. Mm-hmm. Actually, you can break it into the words koach ma, which is sort of can be translated as the strength of what? The power of what? When a person is connecting to Chokhmah, they're connecting to curiosity. They're connecting to a place in them that is receptive to new ideas. They're connecting to a place of them that can learn new things. And Chokhmah is the one place in a person's being that can open to infiniteness, because it's this place in a person's consciousness that says, the power of what? What? That's Chokhmah, is Koach Ma, like the power of Ma. Ma is, what is that? It's like the ultimate openness of curiosity to understand and know new things. And because we are connected in some way to this quality of Chokhmah, this is going to give us an access to understanding, not through our brain, but understanding in another way. And this is another interesting conversation that is very current in the world right now, of the limitations of intellectual knowledge and the opening to instinctive, intuitive knowing. And this is where this next part of Tanya is going to go. There's the things you learn, the things you taught. Then there's the things that you meditate on, and the constructs that you think about to try and influence your behavior and your understanding a certain way. And then there's a knowing that doesn't come from your brain. And that's what the Tanya is going to talk about now. It's a quality of Chokhmah that's a gift from our forefathers. And even if you're the lowest yid on the totem pole, spiritually speaking, you still got a little piece of this connection of an open-minded quality of receiving information about the wondrousness of what is. What is. And in that place of openness, of wonder, comes a knowing, and this knowing is the present from our forefathers, that actually God is at the bottom of all of everything. So we'll try and read that inside. Okay? We're going to read that inside. Sounds very nice, right? When I say it outside, it sounds
like the first shiurim I ever had with David Aarons in the Israel Center. And he would talk like this, and I'm like, whoa, it's 43 years later, I can handle it, but then I couldn't.
Right. Okay. So let's try. Okay. So
David Aarons?
I've heard of him. Yeah. The lights, there's the center of light or something. The light, something, right? Okay. Yeah. So, as it is written, Hashem in his wisdom created the earth. The words Hashem in his wisdom show that the light of the Ein Sof illuminates the sphere of Chokhmah. Right? Hashem created with wisdom, and the light of the Ein Sof is shining in the sphere of Chokhmah, while the words wisdom founded the earth indicate that Chokhmah is clothed in Malchut, which is called earth, for like the earth, Malchut is the lowest level in its hierarchy, and it's further written, in wisdom you have made them all. So wisdom is a big piece of that. Hashem used his wisdom to create all of the world. Thus, we see that the light of the blessed Ein Sof, this light, which has no end, which is infinite, which is ongoing, is garbed in the faculty of wisdom in the human soul of whatever sort of Jew he may be. Because Chokhmah is open. Chokhmah is open to the wonder. Chokhmah is like that moment where we say, wow, I had an epiphany, a new idea popped into my head. There's a place connected to Chokhmah that's kind of infinite. It's not Bina, where you're trying to understand it, you're trying to make it make sense. Chokhmah is like a chap. It's got something infinite about it. And that infiniteness of Chokhmah connects to the infinite light of Hashem. And this connects to whatever sort of person a Jew, whatever level a Jew is, he has this quality of Chokhmah in his soul. In turn, the soul's capacity or faculty of Chokhmah, together with the light of the blessed Ein Sof that it is clothed in, suffuses all the levels of the soul from the head to the foot, from the highest level to the lowest level, because it says wisdom gives life to those who possess it. This aspect of Chokhmah is life-giving in a way. And it's actually interesting. We started off the shir with the Hayom Yom, that a person can get fat from love of Hashem, but a person can get vitality from his excitement, from his wisdom, from this Chokhmah place of accessing something bigger than himself, something that he kind of doesn't even have all the details of yet, but it's just like a whoa, an epiphany. It's very much, the word epiphany is a very good description, because Chokhmah is always that first flash, and then you got to afterwards try to figure out, what is it that I actually chapped? Like, do I really, now I got to try and ground it a little bit. And at times, the sinners of Israel may even bring down for their children very lofty souls, which have been in the depths of the klipot, as is explained in Sefer Gilgulim, like a soul can come down that can be a very high soul. But the Chokhmah is the source of intelligence and comprehension, which begins to emerge in the faculty of Bina, and it's higher than Bina, and it's above comprehension and understanding. It's the source of intelligence and comprehension, and it's this idea of koach ma, which is this, wondrous openness to infinity. And therefore, all Jews who have no knowledge of Hashem's greatness can have this instinctive, intuitive belief in God, since faith is beyond understanding and comprehension. And here it comes, and it says that actually sometimes the fool in inverted commas, can even be higher in a certain way than the clever man, because there's a verse that says, Peti ya'amin lakol davar va'arum yavin v'gome. The fool believes everything, but the clever man understands. Sometimes it's better to be a little bit of the fool, to open yourself to this, like the na'aseh v'nishma, to the place where it goes way beyond your understanding. And it says somewhere, I'm foolish and ignorant. I am as a beast before you. I am constantly with you. In other words, when I shut off that brain, that kind of very cerebral brain, I can even bond more easily with you. When I'm kind of allowing my simple faith part to kind of step forward. Even the little knowledge even the little knowledge is enough, because this is not about a rational thing. This is because the one God illuminates and animates the entire soul through being clothed in its faculty of chokhmah, which is beyond any graspable knowledge or intelligence. So that is the
beyond AI.
Say again?
Beyond AI. It's we think of AI as being infinite, but God is obviously much greater than. In other words, it's just a taste of what infinite is like of knowledge. Make it God, it's even more. I'm talking of the simple minds.
Well, the thing is, AI, if you think about AI, it could be a great gift of God, right? God saying, I'm going to give you this gift of information. Information you can get from AI. This is a knowing that is part of the faith thing. This is when this doesn't connect. This is not about knowledge. This is about a knowing. And what Tanya is saying to us is that we all have been given an aspect of knowing that is connected to this quality of chokhmah. We often think of chokhmah as a very intellectual construct. Yeah. But actually, chokhmah is an aspect of the person that doesn't know. It's the koach ma. It's like a wonder of grabbing towards opening oneself to connect to something. Yeah.
That's powerful. Totally different from AI. One's information and one is the simple connection. Very different.
A simple connection that we have as a Yerushah, as a gift. I'll just read it. We just have a couple minutes, so I'll just read it from Chaim Miller. Chokhmah is the source of all intelligence and cognition. It precedes Bina, which is the experience of cognitively grasping an idea that was previously intuited in a raw state by Chokhmah. So Bina is the sort of intellectually grabbing it, but the Chokhmah, it's kind of an intuition, inspiration. It's not so rational, Chokhmah. So Chokhmah that precedes and is the source of cognition and grasping. This is also reflected in the Hebrew word Chokhmah, the fusion of the words koach ma. Chokhmah is the power and the ability to say, what is this? An inquisitiveness and an openness to that which is not yet grasped and understood and still defies comprehension. And that's a place where we connect to God beyond our knowing, beyond our understanding. And that's a place that somehow gets rooted in something that has this knowing of Hashem as a gift from our forefathers. And I might say foremothers too. Each of those forefathers had beautiful marriages, and there was, the accomplishments of both of them, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Rochel, Leah, Bila, and Zilpah. Somehow that's part of, their ability to have being able to bequeath to us something in our DNA. It's soul quality that we have. So it's something so the Tanya, obviously we're going to be speaking about this more, but the Tanya says this is our Yerushah, this is our inheritance, and we all have it. And it's part of what's going to enable us to love Hashem even when we're not so capable of meditating on constructs. We can have this innate feeling. And that's chapter 18.
Whew, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. I'll put if there are any questions or any other comments. Otherwise, we can just sit with this. We can sit with it a little bit. As one of my
like
teachers,
puzzle pieces.
well, it's I think it's kind of ways of thinking and understanding ways of functioning, and the Alter Rebbe sort of tells us what's going on behind the scenes. We see the actors on the stage and we don't quite know what's motivating them, what's the story behind the story. And the Alter Rebbe comes and he sort of sheds light on the story behind the story, and that helps us understand our own functioning, and it can help us inspire ourselves and connect to these ideas and rely on these ideas and use these ideas to help construct our own, sense of reality.
And understand those people who have that like on fire pintala yid, where they're just secular, no nothing, but they're in awe of the possibility of like, they just have a certain curiosity and like attachment to something, and it's always remarkable to me. I wasn't like that, but I see people like that.
Well, also, I mean, we spoke about it and we've spoken about it before. The hostages in dire circumstances had real knowing of God. It wasn't intellectual, it was experiential. They felt God's presence, they felt that knowing, they experienced it. It was, very much what is latent was latent there. It just hadn't been tapped. And that's what the Tanya wants to tell us, that we all have these latent capacities. We don't want to be in these serious situations where we're forced to tap into them. We can tap into them even when we're not in dire straits, but that it is something that is the core of who we are by our soul identity. That's the
Thank you for sharing your ability to give it over. It's not an easy thing to give over.
Thank you for listening. It's a combination of your desire to listen that elicits the words to come out. So it's a partnership. So thank you. Okay. All right. Have a good night. Good night, Dina Bracha. We'll see each
Bye,
other
Dina
on
Bracha.
Wednesday.
Happy planting.
Yeah, and harvesting and reaping and fertilizing and everything. Okay. Not fertilizing right now, but anyway. Okay. Sei gesund.